one of the parts that I really like about travel is getting to hang out and meet interesting people while I'm on the road. While I was in Mexico City, I got to meet up with quite a few people, and one of those people was a guy by the name of Mitchell Cohen.
What's up, Mitchell? Nice to meet you in person, man.
Well, man.
I'm just filming a little...
What up, world?
Now, Mitchell is an interesting dude because one, he works for a company called AppSumo, and he works directly with the founder of that company, Noah Kagan. Now, Noah is a very successful entrepreneur. You may have seen his YouTube channel, which Mitchell is actually a really big part of. And so in his day job, Mitchell actually handles influencer partnerships for AppSumo, and he's also handling collaborations for Noah's YouTube channel. Now, aside from his work on AppSumo, he's also creating content himself. He has a really, really cool newsletter that takes less than 5 minutes to read, and I've got a link in the description below if you want to subscribe to that. He offers tips on productivity, self-improvement, many different things in his bag there on his newsletter. Now, Mitchell and I had a wide-ranging conversation on a lot of different topics, including why he decided to become a digital nomad, along with what it's like to live a bit of an unconventional life compared to the rest of your friends and family back home, and some of the inner tension that comes with that. Talked about all those subjects and more, so let's go ahead and just jump right in to that conversation that I had with Mitchell Cohen.
So when did you start thinking about doing the digital nomad thing?
The seed was first probably planted when I read 4 Hour Workweek years ago. I probably read it in 2014.
Okay, it's probably the same. I think I read it around like 2012, so not too.
Okay, yeah. And I had not, it didn't fully click for me. Like a lot of people will like say they read it and they're like, oh my gosh, it fully clicked. Like I was like, oh, this is interesting, but I didn't know where even to start with it. And I wasn't as, I don't know if this is the right word, but miserable in my day job quite yet. And so it wasn't until a few more years. I was like, oh, this traveling thing would be cool, and finding an alternative like sources of income also would be nice. And then the last couple of years, I think it's starting to get more serious of like, okay, here's this thing I maybe want to do, to like, okay, here's this thing I'm definitely going to do, I just don't know when.
Yeah.
And then it turned into like, yo, don't have like these things that you know you want to do eventually someday, just do it now. And so last year I tested it out with staying in Costa Rica in December for a couple extra weeks.
Oh, cool.
And I liked it. And I was like, all right, my goal for, as I was doing my recap of December 2021, I was like, all right, goal for 2022 is to like pull the trigger on at least working and doing the digital nomad thing in at least one other country.
That's a good thing that you did a test. Like,
yeah.
I think that's so critical in like so many things in life. Like, even me with what I'm trying to do now, I'm looking at all of these things as like, all right, I'm gonna test this and see if is this something that I can do sustainably and consistently over an extended period of time. Like, well, let's figure out first if I can do it for like a short period of time and like not kill myself.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing I've learned that has like changed the way that I operate over the last couple of years, working with AppSumo and Noah.
Yeah.
Like we have a mantra that's like test then invest, and so like with anything we do, like working with a contractor or like testing a new piece of software, like rather than just buying the whole year, we're just like hiring somebody. We always just do a very small test, and then if it works, great, then invest more into it. But I've used that in my own life too, for like, oh, working abroad would be cool. Like, let's what's the smallest test that I can like try out like right now?
Yeah. I just finished listening to the audiobook today of How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen.
I haven't read that, but I've heard great things.
Yeah. And so the end of the book like really stuck with me because, you know, he was talking about like finding purpose, and that's like a very nebulous concept.
Sure.
and he broke it down into like 3 parts. And the first part is just really giving it some thought about who is the person that you want to become, and having that be like the foundation first, because then like you build your purpose around that. Like you behave in a certain way to like eventually become that person you want to be. And that's something I was like thinking about a lot, like while I was walking around the park earlier this morning, thinking about like myself a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades from now, like who's the person that I want to be, like when I'm that age. Because I never really even thought about that, like I guess when I was younger. Like I think I thought about things I wanted to do with my life, but I never really thought about like, well, who's the person that I want to be when I'm like in my mid-30s?
Right. And what would that person think about this choice or this choice? Be like, oh, they definitely would do this over there.
Yeah.
Interesting. What'd you come up with? Who do you want to be?
I mean, definitely just somebody I want people to remember me as someone who is kind and compassionate and like, you know, open-minded, willing to have hard conversations about things that may be uncomfortable, but always coming from like a good place. Those are things that come to mind.
Is there any 1 to 3 examples that come to mind when you think about the top 3 things that you're most proud of?
Well, one thing again is like what I was talking about earlier, is just being willing to like go out and like chase my dreams, like the things that I imagined.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely fortunate. I don't act like I did everything by myself, or you know, it was all me. Like I definitely had opportunities that came as a result of, you know, the background that I'm from, and like the foundation that my parents gave me, you know, as like a springboard into the things that I do now. But I don't know, like every time like I think about people, especially my peers in like high school and elsewhere, a lot of people would just like give up and like defer and say like, I can't do this, I can't do that, it's not possible for me. Traveling is not possible for me. Going and trying for like my dream job in the NBA is not possible for me. And I feel great that I've chased and tried those things and like found out too, like some of them weren't all cracked up to what I thought they would be.
Sure.
You know?
But you only know that from doing it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So it's kind of like doing the big thing that you want, but doing it now. So like at first for you, that was backpacking. Then it was working for the NBA with an NBA team. What do you think is like the next chapter of that? Creating blog content?
Yeah, maybe creating videos, and maybe that might be one thing. I go back and forth on like the family thing. It probably really depends on the person that I end up being with. You know, if I end up with somebody who we make that decision together, like, great. If I end up with somebody who doesn't want to have kids, then, or we're just like not in a position where we can comfortably or even like confidently go into it. Like, I don't want to just go into it like saying like, well, this is what you have to do like at this stage of life. We want to go with like intention.
Right.
I wouldn't want to go into having kids thinking like, when you're older, like you have to take care of me or something.
Right.
Because you have that, like some parents, they're like that. They're like, well, look at all the things I've done for you in your life. Now it's your time to take care of me.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to do that.
Although I feel like from the parent's perspective, the parent gives way more to the kid than the kid could ever give back.
Yes.
But also, probably that's like one of the greatest joys of life is to like recreate life. But I don't know. I don't have any kids.
Yeah.
I think I would like to have kids, but not in the anytime soon.
Have you thought about it? Like, is it something that you think about often, or is it kind of like?
I've thought about it. I've thought that I would like, you know, wife and kids is definitely the vision. I also think about things that I value and sort of trajectory or timeline. Like I value right now most more than anything is like freedom and flexibility.
Yeah.
And so like I'll probably have a dog at some point too, but I haven't had a dog because like I want to be able to go to Mexico City for a couple weeks.
That's
in
the same
South
thing with
America.
me.
And so it's like that is top of the priority list or values list right now. And I'll do this for a little while, see how it goes, and then at any point in time kind of reevaluate and like, okay, maybe I want to settle down and not travel as much and get that dog. Maybe I want to settle down and make some kids. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friends are having kids and getting married and blah, blah, blah. Super happy for them. That's great. And every now and then I feel like, oh, should I be doing that right now? But then when I take a step back, I'm like, no, that's cool for them. Everyone's got their different journeys and paths, and like, this is my path that I'm doing right now.
When those moments come, and then even when you're hanging out with them, are there ever times where you feel like a fish out of water? You know, because like more of them are starting to settle down, starting to build those families.
For the most part, no, but certainly sometimes. So like, I'll give you an example. People send you their holiday cards in the mail.
Yeah.
And it's like, you put them on your fridge, it's like them and their dog. Then the next year, it's like them and their dog and their kid. And all of a sudden, they got like 2 kids and 3 dogs. And I love those. And like, I appreciate when I receive anything in the mail that's not like a promotion. And so I put those on my fridge. And I have all these things on my fridge of, so-and-so's got wife and kids and dog, wife and kids, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't realize it, but every time I saw that, I was getting like a little nudge of like, little like poke, like, yo, they're getting married, they're having kids. And so I took them all down. No more holiday cards. I don't need that any sort of nudge there. And so like, I think for me, the realization was like understanding for a while. I was like, oh yeah, like I was catch myself looking at that and be like, oh yeah, maybe. And I was like, no, dude, you're good. Like, I'm very excited about the path I'm on. I don't need to like second guess it. And once I hear of now like somebody getting married or having their second kid or something, I'm like, oh, dope, that's amazing. Like, kids are awesome. I don't really know much about kids, but I'm learning a lot through my friends' kids. Yeah. And I'm like happy for them. But like, to be honest, every now and then I get that, like usually around the holidays, I've noticed. But I think like the first step of any behavioral change is awareness. And so like knowing of like, oh yeah, this is the time period when everyone sends their stuff. I'm probably going to be like, oh, like, it's cuffing season. I'll probably think about that. But like knowing that I'm going to has been helpful.
What about like having conversations with them when you get together with them? You still feel like you can have conversations where you guys can relate? Or do you feel to some extent like some distance starting to like build up there?
A little bit of both, probably. I think it's like with anybody that you really connect with on like a lot of different levels or dimensions, it's like kind of like what we were talking about earlier of like the verbs versus nouns of like they're not just like a married couple, like they're also doing podcasting, they're traveling, they just started a side business. And so for those types of friends, able to have like, they call it like Velcro theory of like multiple points to latch onto and connect with, versus other people who's just like, yeah, I got my same job and like now we just had our second kid, like things are pretty good, watch anything cool on Netflix. Yeah. And I'm like, dog, don't Netflix shows me. Like I'm not gonna have much there on that and like pop culture. I think that doing interesting stuff that like each individual like ourselves find interesting is like the breadcrumbs to like better conversation. Because it's like, yo, I just did this, was in Mexico City, was hanging out with my dude John, we did this like awesome like meal and had some beers and a margarita and made like a vlog thing. And like to that, if I tell that to a friend, they're like, oh, like, whoa, you're in Mexico City. How'd you meet John? Oh, he was vlogging, you were vlogging. Oh, you guys met through a newsletter. Like, there's so many cool things in that story to latch onto that it's not just like, oh yeah, I was like stayed at home and watched Netflix.
Yes. See, one thing for me, I'm curious if you deal with it. It's just with like family. For me personally, like being Filipino, like family is very tight. Sure. And I've gone to like family events and I see like my cousins who were, having kids, starting their own families and stuff. And, we're still like connected by this blood relationship and I care about these people very much. But at the same time, I'm like, man, I don't feel like we have that much in common anymore.
Losing commonalities as time goes a little. That's really interesting that you talked about that, because like I've been trying to put into words this concept of like, and I think it's what you're talking about, but like to me it's like there's a concept of boldness, and like when I first hear the word boldness, I don't really know what it means. It's like, oh, you're just being bold, but it really means of just like, either a level of conviction or a level of like, oh, there's this other adventure I want to do, and like that's kind of bold to take that like risk in like doing other things. So alternative paths, like you said, I think is a good way to put it. And like to me, those are the people that I have found to be that I connect most with.
Yeah.
Other than that of like the traditional path, seems like there maybe isn't as much to connect with.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I just, for some people, like I have friends, I have family, they're going like a more traditional route, and from what I know about them, they seem happy. So as long as if they're happy, like that's fine. Like I don't like criticize anybody for like choosing that lifestyle. I don't think my way of doing things is better,
Right.
And at the same time, I don't think their way of doing things is better. It just is a way of doing things.
Alrighty, that's gonna do it. Thanks again to my friend Mitchell Cohen for joining me on this video. Make sure to check out Mitchell's newsletter, link down below in the description, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks, take care.